Good afternoon and welcome to the Washington Report with Tea Party Patriots Action. I'm Bill Pasco, Tea Party Patriots man in Washington. Let's get right to it. The House has been out of session since its last vote on September 19, 45 days ago. But the House is now on 36-hour notice and will likely come back into session later this week. The Senate was in session all weekend and will stay in session, says the Majority Leader, until the Senate reopens the government. Last week in the Senate came back on Monday and voted to end debate on the nomination of Eric Chun-Yi-Tung to be a circuit judge on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. On Tuesday, the Senate failed to end a debate on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371, the House-passed continuing resolution. Then the Senate voted to confirm Joshua D. Dunlop to serve as a circuit judge for the First Circuit Court of Appeals. On Wednesday, the Senate voted to confirm Eric Chun-Yi-Tung to serve as a circuit judge for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Then the Senate voted to end debate on the nomination of Caleb Orr to serve as Assistant Secretary of State. On Thursday, by a vote of 49 to 51, the Senate failed to agree to a motion to discharge S.J. Res. 90, a joint resolution to direct the removal of United States armed forces from hostilities within or against Venezuela that have not been authorized by Congress. On Friday, the Senate failed to agree to end debate on a motion to proceed to S-3012 under reconsideration. That's a bill to appropriate funds for pay and allowances of accepted federal employees for periods of work performed during a lapse in appropriations. That is, they wanted to pay federal workers during the shutdown. Democrats said no. On Sunday evening, by a vote of 60 to 40, with 8 Democrats crossing party lines to vote with the Republicans, the Senate agreed to end debate on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371, the House-passed continuing resolution, about which we will speak more in a moment. This week in the Senate came in this morning at 11 a.m. to begin taking the procedural votes involved in passing the resolution to end the shutdown. They could finish the work today, or they could extend the work until later in the week. Depends on whether or not everybody agrees to the unanimous consent requests. Stay tuned. Now to Tucker Carlson and Kevin Roberts. For the last week and a half, the conservative movement has been in turmoil over, of all things, anti-Semitism. On Monday, October 27, Tucker Carlson hosted on his YouTube show Nick Fuentes, the racist, anti-Semitic, Hitler-respecting white nationalist influencer. For 2 hours, the two conversed about Fuentes' views, with Carlson failing to use the opportunity to challenge Fuentes on any of his particularly vile beliefs. Within hours, right-wing X was abuzz, with Carlson coming under fire for platforming Fuentes. For some reason I have yet to ascertain, Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts felt a need to come to Carlson's rescue. On Thursday, October 30, Roberts recorded and posted a 3-minute video defending Carlson, saying Carlson was and always would be a great friend of the Heritage Foundation, and that the people criticizing him were members of what he called a, quote, venomous coalition, unquote. Many conservatives, including staffers at Heritage, were aghast and criticized Roberts, who eventually came to see the posting of the video as a colossal mistake. He apologized for it, but the controversy has not yet died. The Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal had big think pieces over the weekend. Many people got into the fray. I've included several pieces in the suggested reading. Now to last night's news. Late Sunday evening, U.S. pardon attorney Ed Martin posted to his X account news that President Trump had pardoned dozens of Trump's allies who were involved in the Alternate Electors episode. Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, Sidney Powell, Kenneth Chesbrough, and 73 other people were pardoned, quote, for conduct relating to the advice, creation, organization, execution, submission, support, voting, activities, participation in or advocacy for or of any slate or proposed slate of presidential electors, whether or not recognized by any state or state official, in connection with the 2020 presidential election, as well as for any conduct relating to their generous efforts to expose voting fraud and vulnerabilities in the 2020 presidential election." End quote. None of those pardoned had been indicted by the federal government, but all knew they were under investigation and could theoretically be charged by the federal government. Many of them were wrongly indicted by state governments. Now to the government spending. Deal or no deal? Deal. It's Monday, November 10, day 41 of what is now the longest shutdown in the history of the U.S. government. Sometime this week, at a time yet to be determined, the shutdown will end, because yesterday, 8 Democrats caved to reality. The Republican position at the beginning of this episode was simple: pass the continuing resolution to keep the government open, and we'll talk about health care after the government is reopened. The Democrat position at the beginning of this shutdown was a bit more complicated: pass the continuing resolution to keep the government open, plus restore the $1 trillion worth of Medicaid cuts you took in the One Big Beautiful Bill, plus extend the expiring Obamacare premium tax credits at a cost of $400 billion over the next decade. For 5 weeks, the two sides stared at each other. Then came Tuesday night last week, with Democrat victories all over the country. President Trump hosted a breakfast Wednesday at the White House for Republican senators, and he told them Republicans were losing the shutdown and it was hurting them. He pushed them to nuke the filibuster, destroying the institution of the Senate forever, so Republicans could reopen the government on their terms without need for any Democrat votes. Democrats saw that and upped their demands. They added a demand that President Trump restore to their jobs every federal worker who had been riffed during the shutdown, and give them back pay, and take further reductions in force off the table during the period until the end of the new continuing resolution on January 30. That went over like a lead balloon. Majority Leader Thune made clear that Republicans were not going to eliminate the filibuster. The votes aren't there, he said, matter-of-factly, and Republicans were not going to move off their position. And so, on day 40, the deal was struck. 8 Democrats agreed to break with their party to vote for a resolution that includes the following: a continuing resolution to keep the government funded through the end of January 2026, a 3-bill minibus that includes full-year funding for everything funded by the Military Construction Veterans Affairs Appropriations Bill, the Legislative Branch Appropriations Bill, and the Agriculture Appropriations Bill. An end to reductions in force during the period this continuing resolution is in place, and a rehiring of the federal workers who lost their jobs during the shutdown. In addition, Majority Leader Thune promised to hold a vote on the extension of the expiring Obamacare enhanced premium tax credits on a bill of the Democrats' choosing. That is, the Democrats can write the bill, and they'll get a vote on it, sometime in the month of December. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer put out a video saying he was a no on this deal. But, notably, he didn't urge his fellow Democrats to vote against it. Other than the federal workforce elements, this was the same deal that Leader Thune offered weeks ago. The Democrats won nothing for their insistence on keeping the government closed. And once again, we learned the lesson that the side pushing a government shutdown to achieve a policy victory of some sort loses. The Senate came in at 11 a.m. today in hopes the members would be able to get all their work done today so they could get home in time for Veterans Day celebrations tomorrow. That will depend on whether or not all 100 senators agree to the unanimous consent requests. Let's talk first about Senate Democrats. The 8 who voted for the deal are Illinois' Dick Durbin, Maine's Angus King. He's actually an independent, but he caucuses with the Democrats. Nevada's Catherine Cortez Masto and Jackie Rosen. New Hampshire's Jeanne Shaheen and Maggie Hassan. Pennsylvania's John Fetterman, and Virginia's Tim Kaine. What do they have in common? None of them are running for re-election in 2026. That may shield them a bit from the anger of their colleagues and their party's base, both of which are seething with anger. And not all of their anger is directed at just the 8 who voted to end the shutdown. A good bit of that anger is directed at Leader Schumer, especially among 2026 Senate candidates, many of whom tweeted yesterday that he should be dumped as Democrats' leader, or they would not vote for him to stay as Democrat leader if they win election to the Senate. Now let's look at the House side of the equation. The bill is going to change. It's no longer a clean CR. It's now a CR with a 3-bill appropriations minibus attached to it. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has already declared his opposition to the bill, and I don't think you're likely to get more than 3 or 4 Democrats in the House to vote for it. Jared Golden of Maine, Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, Henry Cuellar of Texas, and Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez of Washington come to mind as possibilities. So that means you're going to need virtually every Republican to vote for it. Once the House returns, Speaker Johnson will swear in Adelita Grijalva, who won a special election to replace her father in the House in September. That will bring the head count to 219 Republicans and 214 Democrats, which means Johnson can only afford to lose 2 Republicans. Last time the House voted on a CR, precisely 2 Republicans, Victoria Spartz of Indiana and Thomas Massie of Kentucky, voted against it. In this deal, Johnson will be asking his GOP colleagues to swallow 2 appropriations bills, agriculture and legislative branch, that the House never voted on, and which come in at top-line spending numbers billions of dollars above what the House Appropriations Committee agreed to. But House Appropriations Committee cardinals, the subcommittee chairs, including House Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris of Maryland, helped negotiate the minibus compromise, and Speaker Johnson is going to be counting on that to get support from conservatives. We can also expect President Trump to support the deal and to press House Republicans to vote for it. Notably, Speaker Johnson was not part of any grand bargain here. He made promises to anybody. He made no promises to anybody that he would hold a vote in the House on the expiring Obamacare tax credits. Now to nuking the filibuster, Part 13. President Trump is still at it, keeping up his campaign to get Senate Republicans to nuke the filibuster. On Wednesday morning, he hosted the Senate Republican Conference for breakfast at the White House. He pushed them there to terminate the filibuster so they could push through the House-passed continuing resolution without any Democrat votes. It did not go over well, but President Trump does not give up easily. He kept up the pressure over the weekend, continuing to post to his Truth Social account. You know who else doesn't give up easily? Senate Majority Leader John Thune. He just calmly responded to reporters' questions about the prospect of eliminating the filibuster, saying he knew the votes to do that did not exist within the Senate Republican Conference. And that was it. No matter how many times the president brought it up, the majority leader simply knocked it down. And, of course, since the deal to end the shutdown was declared and then voted on yesterday, there's no longer a need to even consider trashing the filibuster as a necessary action to end the shutdown. And that's our Washington report for this week. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Until then, be well and be active.